ever pick something up in the dark and just know what it is right away? Just from how it feels.
Yeah.
Like, we take it for granted, but that's a tough one for robots.
Oh, it's true.
That sense of touch.
So complex.
Yeah.
Humans, it goes way beyond just contact, right? We're processing textures, temperature, weight, all those little subtle things.
And that's what makes this research from Duke so fascinating. They've developed this system. It's called SonicSense, and it basically lets robots feel the world.
Feel the world.
Using sound.
Wow.
We've got the press release and the full academic paper here, and they're both titled SonicSense, Object Perception from In-Hand Acoustic Vibrations.
So the idea is, instead of trying to perfectly copy how human touch works, they're using a different sense hearing to kind of get to a similar outcome.
Okay, so how does that even work? Does the robot have super hearing or something?
Not quite. So they designed a 4-fingered robotic hand, and each fingertip has a tiny contact microphone embedded in it.
So, are we talking those pickups you see on guitars?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, cool.
So it's not just listening to sounds around it.
Right.
It's actually making the vibrations by, interacting with the object.
So tapping, grasping, shaking.
All of that
Gosh.
produces a unique vibration, and the microphones pick that up.
Okay.
And here's where it gets really cool. They use AI to analyze those vibrations.
So it's almost like the AI is learning to read the objects, like sonic fingerprint.
That's a perfect analogy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the system is trained on this massive data set of vibrations, and it learns to tell the difference between materials, shapes, even how much of something is inside of a container.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
It can tell how much of something is in a container that's closed just by sound.
Yeah, so they tested it with a box of dice.
Okay.
And just by shaking it, the robot could accurately count how many dice were inside.
Wow. I wouldn't have thought that was possible.
It's pretty amazing.
What other tests did they do?
So one that I think really shows what it can do is this water bottle test.
Okay.
The robot could figure out how full the bottle was just by shaking it.
Really?
Just by analyzing the little differences in the sloshing sounds.
So it's not even just about what an object eyes. It's understanding, I don't know.
Properties like volume.
Yeah.
Things like that. And they took it a step further. They even showed that the robot can rebuild the 3D shape of an object just by tapping it.
Okay, you've got my attention now.
Yeah.
How does that even become a 3D model? I'm thinking of those sonic weapons that use sound waves to break things, but this is different, obviously.
Yeah,
this is more nuanced.
Way more nuanced, yeah.
Yeah.
Think of it like a bat using echolocation.
Okay.
As the robot taps different spots on the object.
Right.
It makes this like a sound map based on how the vibrations come back to it.
Interesting.
And then the AI uses that map along with where each tap was to create the 3D model.
So it's like those, you see those 3D scanners at museums?
Yeah.
Except this is all sound, it's not light.
Exactly. And that's a big advantage that the researchers talk about. Today's robots really rely on vision.
Right.
Which has its problems.
Oh, yeah, like transparent things.
Transparent objects, yeah.
Shiny surfaces.
Shiny surfaces, yeah.
Complex shapes.
All that can confuse a vision system.
Yeah. Yeah.
SonicSense, it just bypasses all that.
Oh, wow.
It's like this whole new way for robots to perceive things.
This is really cool. I'm already thinking robots that can work in total darkness.
Yeah.
Or handle super delicate objects.
Without breaking them.
Without breaking them, exactly.
Yeah, those are just a couple examples.
Yeah.
Think about manufacturing.
Okay.
Where robots could use this to put together tiny fragile parts or check products for microscopic defects, or even healthcare, where robots could help in surgery.
Oh, wow.
With just amazing precision and care.
So we're talking a revolution in robotics here. And you said this all came from those simple contact microphones.
It did.
What about the AI side? What kind of computing power are we talking?
So they're using something called MEL spectrograms to look at the audio data.
I haven't heard of those before, yeah.
Yeah.
Aren't they a visual way to represent sound frequencies, almost like a fingerprint?
Exactly.
Okay.
And they've come up with several pretty sophisticated machine learning models to interpret these sonic fingerprints.
Okay.
One for classifying materials, another one for reconstructing the shape, and another for re-identifying objects.
Wait, re-identification. So it doesn't just analyze something new, it can actually recognize something it's seen before.
Yeah. It's like giving the robot a sonic memory.
Oh, cool.
So it can tell the difference between, say, two objects of the same type.
Okay.
Like if you had a set of wrenches, it could recognize a specific one.
So we've got the microphones, the spectrograms making it visual, and then these different AI models making sense of it all. That's quite the system.
It is. It is.
The researchers said that SonicSense is doing better than past attempts at this kind of technology. What makes this one better?
Well, a few things. But the multiple fingers is big.
Okay.
Having those multiple points of contact, each with its own microphone,
Right.
that gives the AI a lot more data to work with.
It's like having multiple views of the same object.
Exactly.
Which I guess helps it build a better understanding.
Right. And then using those contact microphones, that's another plus. They cut out extra noise and only focus on the vibrations that the robot makes when it touches the object.
So it's like the hardware and the AI working together.
That's what's pushing the limits here, yeah.
But all this tech, I'm guessing this is a pretty expensive setup.
You'd be surprised.
Oh,
It's actually pretty cheap to build, a little over $200.
really? That's like less than some gaming headsets. How is that even possible?
Well, they used a lot of off-the-shelf parts on purpose.
Hmm.
You know, like those guitar pickups we talked about. To
right.
keep the cost down.
So this isn't just some, pie-in-the-sky lab project.
No, not at all.
That's awesome.
And that's what's exciting about it. It means it could get used more widely, more research, more development, maybe even consumer stuff down the road.
Okay, now that's a future I want to see. But before we get carried away, every technology has limitations, especially early on.
Sure.
What are the researchers saying about SonicSense's current limitations?
Well, one thing they point out is that it's really best for objects that don't move.
Okay.
It can't really handle a dynamic environment where lots of things are moving around yet.
So not ready for a busy kitchen or factory floor just yet?
Not quite yet, but that's a big area for the future.
Mm.
They're already working on adding in object tracking algorithms so the robot can keep up with moving things.
That makes sense. What else are they looking at to make it better?
One thing is dexterity.
Okay.
The robot hand they have now, it works, but it's basic.
Right.
They want to design more nimble hands that can manipulate objects more precisely.
So more freedom of movement.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. More intricate movements that would open up a lot more tasks for it.
For sure. And it would give the AI even more detailed sonic data to work with.
Right.
But it's not just about the hardware.
Mm.
They also want to include other types of sensing, like pressure and temperature.
So you're saying creating a robotic hand that can, see, feel, and now hear?
That's the ultimate goal,
Wow.
to make a system that's as good as the human hand at perceiving the world.
Now that is exciting. We're talking about a fundamental change in how robots interact with everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But hold that thought, because we're going to go even deeper into what this groundbreaking research means when we come back.
Sounds good.
It's kind of wild to think that by using a totally different sense, hearing, they're basically giving robots the feeling of touch.
What's really interesting is this actually makes sense with how we experience the world.
Yeah, like when you think about it,
Huh.
we use sound to learn about objects all the time.
All the time.
And we don't even realize it.
Right, like you tap that melon at the store, you're listening for that sound that tells you it's ripe.
Right, right.
Or a doctor with a stethoscope,
Mhm.
they're using those subtle sound changes
Exact.
to
And
diagnose stuff.
even something simple like knocking on a wall to find a stud, we're always using sound to kind of feel what's around us.
We are.
It's like SonicSense is tapping into that, but for robots.
Exactly, and by doing that, it opens up all these possibilities for how they can interact with things, especially in tasks that are hard right now.
You mentioned manufacturing and healthcare before.
I did, yeah.
Can you talk more about how SonicSense could change those?
Sure, so think about manufacturing.
Okay.
Right now, things that need a delicate touch, like assembling tiny parts or handling fragile materials,
Right.
those are mostly done by people because robots just aren't that skilled.
I get that. Robots are great for those repetitive, high-force tasks.
Yeah, exactly.
But when you need precision, human hands are still the best.
But with SonicSense, robots could maybe do these delicate jobs even better than humans. Think about it. A robot that can feel for those tiny defects.
Wow.
Or put together teeny components perfectly.
That would change the game for industries that need high precision, like electronics,
Electronics, yeah.
medical devices,
Medical devices, for sure.
even watchmaking.
Even watchmaking, yeah.
And you mentioned healthcare, too.
I did.
I'm curious, how could a robot with sonic touch improve things there?
Lots of ways, like
Mhm.
surgical robots.
Okay.
With this tech, they could operate even more precisely.
Wow.
Less tissue damage, better outcomes for patients.
It's like giving surgeons superpowered hand.
Exactly, and not just surgery. Think about patient care, too.
Okay.
A robot that could gently help patients move around,
Right.
sensing their needs, adjusting its touch.
That's amazing.
Or a robot that could do things like draw blood
Right.
or give injections, but make it much more comfortable for the patient.
It sounds like sci-fi, but with this tech, maybe not.
Yeah, and it's not just for specialized fields either. You mentioned home robots earlier.
Yeah.
Think about it. Our homes have so many things that need a careful touch.
Oh, yeah, like glassware,
Glassware,
delicate fabric.
fabrics, yep,
Yeah, plants even.
even plants. And with SonicSense, a robot could finally figure out how to handle all that stuff safely.
I'm picturing a robot folding laundry without ruining my clothes,
Yeah.
or watering my plants without overwatering.
It's like having a robot helper that actually understands our world.
Exactly.
And these are just a few ideas. We're really just starting to see what's possible when robots can feel through sound.
It's pretty remarkable.
It is, yeah.
But with any tech that pushes boundaries like this, we have to think about the bigger picture,
Absolutely.
the ethical side of things.
You're right. As robots become more part of our lives, especially in areas like healthcare and homes,
Right.
it's crucial that we figure out the ethical guidelines for how to develop and use them responsibly.
Yeah, we have to make sure these robots are helping us, not replacing us or hurting us.
Exactly.
It's a conversation that has to happen alongside the tech. We have to really think about what it means to give robots this level of autonomy and sensitivity and make sure we're doing it ethically.
For sure.
So we've talked about the tech, all the amazing potential, and even touched on the ethics.
We have.
Looking back, what would you say is the most groundbreaking thing about SonicSense?
I think it's just how clever the solution is. They took something so simple, those contact microphones,
Right.
something we think of with music and entertainment,
Right.
and turned it into something that could totally change robotics.
It's a great example of thinking differently,
Yeah.
finding inspiration in unexpected places.
And it shows that innovation doesn't have to be super complicated or expensive.
That's what's so cool about it.
It is.
The fact that it's cheap to build means so many more people can use it.
Exactly.
Smaller companies, researchers, even hobbyists.
It could really lead to a boom in robotics.
Right.
With people trying new things, coming up with applications we haven't even thought of yet.
It reminds me of the beginning of personal computers.
Oh, yeah. When everyone suddenly had access to this powerful tool and the possibilities just exploded.
I see what you mean.
And just like PCs changed how we work, communicate, even think. SonicSense could do the same for robotics.
It could.
Changing industries, changing how we interact with machines.
That's a powerful thought.
I'm definitely feeling that sense of possibility. What parts of SonicSense's future are you most excited about?
For me, is how they tackle those limitations we talked about, especially the object tracking and getting those more dexterous hands.
Right.
But even beyond the tech stuff, I love this idea of combining SonicSense with other senses.
You're talking about a robot that can see, feel through sound, but also sense pressure,
yeah.
temperature.
Temperature, maybe even smell.
Wow.
Imagine a robot with a whole range of senses, like a human,
Yeah.
able to navigate and interact with the world in a whole new way.
That's incredible.
It might seem like sci-fi, but it's getting closer and closer. It's definitely a vision that gets me excited about the future of robotics, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We've covered a lot in this deep dive.
We have.
I think it's time to wrap things up and leave our listener with one last question to think about. What do you say?
I like that.
It's funny, we always talk about robots seeing the world,
Yeah.
but with SonicSense, it's almost like they're starting to understand it.
Right. It's not just about the surface anymore.
Exactly. Vision gives you a surface level, sure.
Yeah, you can see things, but you don't really know them.
But being able to feel through sound, that adds a whole other layer.
It's like, think about a wooden table.
Okay?
You could look at a picture of it, see the grain,
Right.
but you don't get the texture, the solidity.
You don't get that feeling of running your hand across it.
Exactly. SonicSense lets robots grasp those qualities, literally and figuratively.
And one thing that really struck me is this potential for, democratizing robotics.
Oh, interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, we talked about how cheap the system is.
Yeah.
It means more people can use it.
Right.
Smaller companies, universities, even just hobbyists messing around in their garage.
That's a great point. It could really open things up.
It could lead to so much more innovation, people trying things we haven't even thought of yet.
It reminds me of, the early days of computers.
Exactly.
Suddenly, everyone had this powerful tool.
And the possibilities just exploded.
Yeah, it changed everything.
And just like PCs changed how we work, communicate, think, even SonicSense could do the same for robotics.
It's a pretty powerful thought.
It really is. It shows how these big breakthroughs can come from anywhere.
And sometimes the simplest ideas are the best.
Right. No fancy sensors, no crazy expensive materials.
Just smart engineering, some good old ingenuity.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listener with a question.
All right, I like it.
Imagine if this technology could be miniaturized.
Oh, wow. Now you're talking.
Tiny enough to fit in a smartphone, a smartwatch.
What if your everyday devices could hear the objects around you?
My phone could tell me if an avocado is ripe just by tapping it.
Your watch could warn you if the milk's gone bad.
We could interact with the world in a whole new way through this sonic sense.
It's an amazing thought.
And maybe not so far off.
Who knows what the future holds?
Sonic sense has really blurred the lines between how humans and machines perceive the world, and who knows what incredible applications are coming next. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into sonic sense. We'll catch you next time.